and thank you for joining us today. My name is Wesley Boudreaux, one of the financial advisors here at the Retirement Group. Today we're going to talk about Social Security and the decision as to when to pull the trigger. We'll talk about some of the changes that have taken place and some of the potential changes that we could see in the future. But more importantly, we're going to focus on how it's a integral part to your retirement planning process. Before I get started, just a quick reminder, the Retirement Group, we've been working with a lot of companies for close to 30 years. That does not mean that we work for your company nor are we endorsed by your company. Through the course of this webinar, there's a couple items to kind of be aware of. There will be a chat box, so we'll be putting some information in there periodically. Different items to follow along with us, items as to maybe how to schedule an appointment with myself or one of the other advisors, how to follow us on LinkedIn to get company-specific updates and information, how it pertains to you. There may be a survey in there. Ask us how this webinar went or give us suggestions for future webinars so we can add those to the roster as well. If you do have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A box there as well. We'll be sure to address as many of those questions as we can by the end of the webinar. Keep in mind it is anonymous, so your name will not be shown, so feel free to put that question in there. If we don't get to all of them, we'll try and follow up with you on them as well, but we'll try and get to as many as we can at the end of the webinar. So let's kind of get started. As far as the Retirement Group, again, many of you have been on our webinars or sat down with one of our advisors, but if you don't know who we are an independent financial advisory firm that focuses on working with corporate 500 individuals, helping them transition into retirement. We've been doing this for about 30 years, working with about 20 some odd different companies. And the reason we only work with a select number of companies, it allows our advisor to have a deeper focus and deeper understanding of your specific benefits plans, whether it be your pension plan, your 401k, healthcare retiree medical benefits, life insurance benefits, things like that. And by understanding all of that, we can give you a good hand-holding, if you would, in that transition process to retirement to make sure you avoid a lot of mistakes and walk away with the most money you can from the company you work for. And we do have offices throughout the country, so rest assured if you need to sit down with somebody face-to-face, we can probably still accommodate that. But obviously this day and age, it's very easy to have web meetings, phone calls, email, whatever your preferred communication method is, we can take care of that. And at the end of the day, if you haven't done so already, or it's been maybe over a year since we've seen a lot of changes this last year, take us up on our complimentary cash flow analysis. This is really a detailed financial plan where we can take a look at what your desired retirement goals are. Maybe you have a year in mind, you know what your spending wants to be, but you don't know if you're on the right path. We can run those numbers to find out, are you on the right path? Can you afford to retire when you want to? Do you need to work longer? Could you retire earlier? We can go through all those different options and show you how they look side by side. Not just now, but in 10, 20, 30 years down the road, so you have a better picture of what that long-term retirement projection can look like. Give us about 10 minutes of conversation. We can gather that data, get those reports back to you, and go from there with any questions you have. So let's get into the topic of Social Security, because this is what we're going to go over today and some of the massive changes we've seen over the years and some things that could happen down the road. Now, this chart here is going to show you the solvency, if you would, of Social Security. And the big question, everybody, is, when do I take Social Security? Am I a bird in the hand versus two in the bush? Do I want to take it while I know it's there? Do I have fears of it potentially going away? And those are common fears because let's face it, it was set up differently, back when it was first set up versus where we are today. People are living a lot longer. So it does have a solvency issue associated with it. If we take a look at this chart here, we've got an issue of 2035 potentially running out of funds in the trust. So what's happened is there's been a surplus over the years where the contributions, the taxes that have been going in, have been building up a trust to pay those funds. Now at 2035, under this chart, that will actually run out, and so you're going to potentially have a shortfall, if you would. And that shortfall they're showing here is about a 21% shortfall. Now, the Congressional Budget Office actually just a couple weeks ago came out with an updated numbers we don't have in this chart, but it's gone a little bit further than that, and that shortfall could be 2034, and that shortfall could be 23%. So if we get to that point, it could be that if we don't do anything drastic, or not drastic, we don't do anything to make changes, then you'll actually see the potential of only getting 77% payout on your Social Security. Now, they also went further into that report to figure out what needs to be done. And right now, about 5% of our GDP in 2022 is spent on Social Security, and that's projected to rise by 2096, I think, to over 7% or so. But in order to make up for that, they're looking at, it's about, I think, a 1.7% change in GDP, but it was a 4.9% change in the taxable employees. So essentially what happens is if they were to increase, we have on this chart a 3.21%, but they're saying if you want to have it solvent all the way out to 2096. This chart only shows, I think, to 2080 or so, but to 2096, that new numbers are a 4.9% increase in payroll taxes. So that's one thing they can do. The other thing they can do is also what they've been doing over the last couple of years is bumping up the amount that can be taxed on the payroll tax. And they can also stretch out the retirement age for younger individuals like myself. Instead of it being at 67, maybe they push it to age 70 or something like that. So those are things that can be done. So I wouldn't be too concerned at this point, but just be aware that there is a potential shortfall happening in 2035, 2034, somewhere in that time period if something isn't done by then. And obviously, if somebody's going to, take on, reduction in Social Security, that's going to be kind of a death sentence for whoever's in Congress looking to do that. So chances are something will be done here. Let's talk about what has been done over the years and what the cost of living adjustment has been. It used to be prior to 1975 that Congress actually set that. Then they pegged it to the CPI. And so if we see over the years, so we look at this chart going back, to the late 70s, early 80s, that's when we have some massive cost of living adjustments. We saw that inflationary environment there. We may or may not be in that right now. We've, for the last year, been in something of that nature. Will it continue? We'll have to see. But this chart here goes out, let me zoom in here, it goes out to 2021. So 2021, we had that increase just shy of 6%, which kicked in for 2022. Right now for 2023 that we're going to see, that was actually an 8.7% increase. It's not on this chart just yet, but an 8.7% increase for 2022, which kicks in for 2023. So we are getting a little bit of help as far as the cost of living adjustment there, but obviously it's not covering everything we've seen as far as the rising cost over the last year or so with the inflationary pressure that we had. Now, getting into inflation, that's obviously a big concern because, again, there's a purchasing power. If you get, let's say, $1,500 a month for Social Security for the rest of your life or through pension, whatever it may be, as years go by, that's not going to travel as far. So that's why they have that cost of living adjustment in there. It doesn't just affect Social Security. We do a lot of work with companies that have pensions still. It's a big effect on your pension lump sum should you decide to actually take a pension as a lump sum versus an annuity. Now, not every company we work with has this option, but a lot of them do. So it's really kind of good to at least kind of refresh on that if you have questions about whether you want to take a lump sum or the annuity. That goes into that cash flow analysis we talked about, where we can run those projections side by side, show you what the different options look like for you. But generally speaking, when we see interest rates move up by about 1%, we're going to see the lump sums change by about 10%. Usually it's 8 to 12% depending upon how old you are. But for simple math, just keep in the back of your mind always a 1% change is an inverse change in your lump sum by about 10%. So if interest rates go up by 1%, your lump sum might drop by about 10%. If they go down by 1%, lump sum might come up by about 10%. Now, in 2022, we saw some of the biggest rises we've ever seen in the inflationary pressure, and as far as how quickly it moved, and we saw a lot of those going over to, in some cases, close to 3% jumps in the pensions. So we saw some people's lump sums drop by 20 to 30%. So again, if you're at near proximity to retirement, you have questions about this, the lump sum versus the annuity, gives a call, because that also goes hand in hand with the decision as to whether to take the Social Security. Because there's also issues where if you take Social Security and you take your company annuity, and then you're essentially on a fixed income and you don't have the ability to budget or plan your taxes as tax brackets change throughout administrations in the future as well. So we can go through all those different things, but ultimately the big issue here again is inflation has a big effect and big impact on spending, which in turn can also impact your Social Security there as well. So we'll get into some of the different things today. We'll talk about the questions you need to ask yourself as far as when's the best time to select Social Security, what are the benefits I'm going to actually get, and then how to contact the Social Security Administration to start those benefits and when should you start those benefits, again, depending upon your specific situation. As far as Social Security, very simply put, you have the ability to take that as early as age 62 or defer it all the way to age 70. Now, there's other issues, widow's benefits and disability benefits, but for a normal situation, age 62 is as soon as you can take it. Full retirement age is going to be anywhere between age 66 and 67. We'll show you in a moment the breakdown of those charts, but pretty much anybody that's not 67 is going to be 67 for you nowadays. And then you have the ability to defer that out to age 70. If you take it earlier, you get a reduction in pay. If you defer it out, you get an increase in pay, and we'll go through some of those options for you in just a moment as well. So why is this important? The age at which you decide to pick Social Security is very important because it can affect your retirement spending. If you run the numbers, you could be able to retire sooner than you thought, or if you have longevity issues, it's important to understand as well. If you're married and you're looking at claiming under 2 different lives, then it definitely becomes more advantageous to understand the options, whether you both collect Social Security at the same time. One starts earlier than the other, one defers. There's a lot of different things that go into that. But at the end of the day, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Don't let anybody tell you that. We can run a Social Security analysis for you. We can show you, over 1,000 different scenarios. But our goal is to kind of get a better idea of what your situation is, get a better idea of your longevity, because everything kind of hinges around that. And then we can back into what the best strategy would be for you. We can tie that into that cash flow analysis I talked about before as well. But any questions on there, just give us a call. We can dig into the numbers for you. So how do you assign a value to Social Security? Now these, right now about 50% of married couples and about 70% of unmarried couples rely heavily on Social Security for the bulk of their income. I mentioned before, we do a lot of work with companies that still have pensions and 401ks. So it may not necessarily be a bulk of your income, but it still is going to cover the bulk of your essential expenses usually. So it's very important to understand Social Security and understand how to claim it appropriately so you maximize those benefits. And then as far as, what would it take to match that? These numbers are a little bit old, because we have an update on this last year with the rise in interest rates. But previously, it would have taken almost about $2 million, probably still over $1 million, depending upon how much Social Security you get, in order to actually match that Social Security payment over your lifetime. And we go through that analysis that I talked about. We'll show you what that lifetime payment would be under various longevity issues as well. So just we can go through that when you give us a call. As far as when should you start taking it, again, it's going to depend upon a lot of different factors, but the factors to consider are your full retirement age and your benefit calculations. So when is your ability to actually take it? Do you want to take it earlier? Do you want to take it later? Are you working? The amount of future benefits you're going to be looking at potentially giving up or increasing if you defer it. How long do you expect retirement to last? What's your life expectancy? If you think you're going to pass away, you've got some family history that nobody's made it past 70, then obviously you might want to look at taking it sooner. If you got longevity in your family, then you probably want to look at deferring to 70. But there's a conversation somewhere in between there. Do you plan to continue working? We'll talk about how taxation affects your Social Security, and also how it affects you if you're working, how much is actually withheld or not. And then how does it play into your income tax situation as well? We talk about this with our clients all the time. We look at Roth conversion strategies and things like that, where we may overload distributions one year and then reduce them another year, so you can sway your taxation of Social Security. That also feeds into Medicare taxes and things of that nature. And then how will your spouse be affected? If you're married, you're probably hopefully not just concerned about yourself, you're concerned about your spouse as well. And obviously, we tend to pass away before our wives. So if there's that and there's an age gap, usually we may want to defer so we can pass along more to them. But that all goes into the planning strategies. So let's take a look at an example here. We'll look at this chart. This is an example of whether you take Social Security at full retirement age, again, which is between 66 and 67. Take it early at 62 or defer it all the way to 70. Let me zoom in here so we're a little bit easier to read this. But this individual here has got a $2,000 benefit. Looks like full retirement age about 66 and 10 months. If you see that they were to decide to take it early at 62, it's actually a little bit over a 28% drop at $1,433. If they were to defer out until age 70, it's about a 27% increase to about $2,533. So between that 62 and 70, that's almost about $1,000 a month difference over that time period. Now the real numbers are if you decide to take Social Security early, the reduction is if you take it within 36 months, it's a small reduction. If you take it over 36 months, so up to that 5-year period, it's a little bit larger. But it ends up being, if your full retirement age is 67 and you take it at 62, you get a full 30% reduction. Each year you wait or defer it after full retirement age, you're looking at an 8% increase on there. So again, not too many places you can get a guaranteed 8%, plus a cost limit adjustment. So here's another thing that a lot of people don't look at is if you were to say, okay, I want to take it early, it's $1,000 less. But if we also focus on, these are current numbers, if we look at the cost limit adjustment, as those get bumped up every year, that larger dollar amount, so in this case, that $1,400 is still going to get a cost limit adjustment as you move through retirement. But if you defer out that $2,500, it's also going to get that same cost of living adjustment. But from a percentage standpoint, that's going to grow more. So that $2,500 is going to grow to a higher amount by age 70 than what your $1,400 and change would have as starting at age 62 as well. So when do you actually get to take Social Security? Again, I mentioned before, pretty much anybody that hasn't turned 67 yet is going to be at 67. But the breakdown here is if you were born before 1954 or earlier, it's 66. Each year after, it goes up by 2 months. So once you hit being born in 1960 or later, so again, turning about 67 now, then it's going to be 67 or higher. That's another point, like I mentioned. So for instance, right now, my Social Security would kick in at 67. Chances are, I've got about 20 plus, a little bit over 20 years before that happens. So they may in turn pump that out, and it may be that maybe the new retirement age is 70 or something like that. Is another aspect of ways to kind of control Social Security and reduce the risk of that shortfall in there as well. So let's get into some of the different benefits we'll talk about. We'll talk about the monthly benefit, how long will retirement last for you, the power of delay in benefits, talk about your choices, and kind of go through all those different options here in the next couple of slides. So let's go into the deferring option and what it means to take it now versus early versus deferring. We kind of showed you that chart before. So here's a little bit different numbers. Let's look at somebody who's 66 in this case, 1800. You see that middle green is going to be what their full retirement age is going to be. If they took it earlier, it's going to be 1,350 at age 62. And you see the various age groups there if you took it earlier, but we're focused on those green bars. So age 62 is 1,350. Age 70, deferring out to there, is going to be 2,376. So again, you're looking at just a little bit over $1,000 a month there difference. So that difference, if you were to say, okay, I wanted to, so there's two different things. You get about $1,000 a month more if you wait till 70. However, you're giving up that 8 years of potential payments, and giving up that 8 years is about $129,000 of income you're giving up. So if you fast forward and say I'm going to make an extra $1,000 a month, so let's take that 130,000 divided by 1,000. That's just shy of about 11 years. So your break even, everything else held equal, is going to be about 11 years. So if you think you're going to make it to age 81 or higher, then deferring to 70 may make sense for you. But again, that doesn't factor into cost of living adjustments, inflation, everything of that nature, or the investment power that you may have if you're investing in this. So those are all things to be aware of and concerned about. And again, like I mentioned before, it may not be that you're focused on yourself. It may be that you've got a spouse who's a couple years younger than you, and you want to defer out till age 70 so you can have a higher amount to pass on to him or her. And we'll get into an example of that in just a moment as well. But reality is that right now, people are living longer than they think. Right now, about 1 in 3 retirees actually make it past 90, and about 1 in 7 make it past 95. So again, that doesn't mean that's going to necessarily be you, but ultimately speaking, people are not as optimistic on their age as what they probably should be. So for a lot of you, deferring and having that higher income later in life may be more beneficial. But until we know the full picture and what your other assets are and what your tax planning strategies are, we really couldn't tell you until we run those numbers with you one-on-one. So what are some of the options if you were to say, hey, I want to take Social Security, but I'm still going to work? Well, generally speaking, if you are working and you don't need that money, you probably want to wait until full retirement age to take it. But if you did decide to take it, or maybe you retired, took your Social Security and went back to work, here's how it kind of plays out as far as what amount you get. So if you are earlier than full retirement age, what's going to happen if you're earning income, you're going to have $1 withheld for every $2 of earnings over $19,560. That does not mean you're going to lose it. It's just withheld, and it's still going to be factored in that calculation later when you hit full retirement age. Now, the year you turn full retirement age, so let's say the year you're going to turn 67, it's a little bit better. It's $1 for every $3 over about $52,000. And then once you hit your full retirement age, let's say 67 in this example, there's no withholding, so you're still going to get your full benefit. Now, keep in mind, if you're going to be making good income and you're taking Social Security, that could kick you into a higher tax bracket. It's going to mean that probably 85% of your Social Security is taxed. We'll talk about some of those breakdowns in a little bit here. So most of the people we work with, like I said before, do still work with companies that have 401ks or pensions. So generally speaking, most people we work with are going to have 3 different forms of potential income. Social Security being one of those, savings and retirement investments from your 401k or an IRA, potentially a pension, whether you're getting the annuity monthly benefits, or whether you're rolled over to your IRA and you're taking withdrawals from there. In some cases, somebody might have go back to work because they want to or need to, or just have some job earnings. Maybe they have rental properties, something like that. So there could be a fourth income stream there as well. But ultimately speaking, that Social Security has a grounding effect, and it covers a good chunk, if not most of your essential expenses for a lot of people. So it's really important to understand those options you have there. And then what's going to happen as far as the taxation? Like I mentioned, you might have other income coming in, whether it be withdrawals or whether it be a pension annuity or a job or rental property. Well, what's going to happen is your Social Security is going to be taxed. Either 0% of it will be taxed, 50% of it, or 85% of it. So that means just a portion of it that's going to be taxed. So no matter what you're making, your 15% of it's not going to be taxed. Now, if you're an individual and you're making over $25,000 a year, up to $34,000 a year, then 50% of your Social Security will be taxed. If you're a married couple, that's going to be between $32,000 and $44,000. Once you go over those numbers of 34 individual and 44 joint, then you're going to see 85% of your Social Security is going to be taxed. So again, let's say I'll make up some quick numbers. Let's say you make $100,000 in income and you make $50,000 in Social Security. Then what's going to happen is 85% of that $50,000 will be taxed. So that's when you go in there and factor in your taxable income. And it's going to look at all different sources. It's going to look at your Social Security and your other income. So for a lot of you, you're going to fall in that 50% or maybe 85% taxation. But like I said before, there are times where we've got individuals who are living within their means, don't need that much, and they're in a very low tax bracket. They don't have any Social Security tax. Or we might alternate years where we look at a Roth conversion that increases their Social Security tax, and then we don't do it the next year, and maybe they have tax-free income from Social Security. So again, a lot of things to review on a one-on-one basis for you. So we talked again before about taking it early versus delay, and let's take a look at a couple in this case, and let's assume they're both probably roughly the same age. And spouse 1 and spouse 2 at age 62 get about $1,700 for one of them and about $1,000 a month for the other, so about $2,700 a month for the joint. If they both wait till full retirement age, in this case 66, it goes up to about $2,300, $1,500, so the total is about $3,800 in change. And if they defer it out till age 70, it's about $5,200 in change. So in this case, both going at 62 versus deferring all the way till age 70, you've got about close to a $2,500 a month increase over that time period. Now, this is not usually what most spouses will do. What you might see is a one defer and one take earlier. We can go through all those different options with you, but let's say in this case, the spouse 1 deferred until age 70, they got that $3,154 per month, with the assumption that they may, let's assume that's a male in this case, and they would assume that maybe they might pass away earlier. So what happened is that spouse 2, let's say if she took her Social Security at 62, so they're getting $1,000 a month, and then once you hit that point of age 70, it kicks in that the spouse 1 is going to get that $3,000 a month, and the spouse 2 might be up to $1,200 or $1,300 by that time with inflation or so. But if spouse 1 passed away, spouse 2 will step into that higher $3,000 a month, whatever it may be at that time. So that's where you come into those planning phases of maybe deferring at least for one individual. But again, it's a one-on-one or a two-on-two situation, so it does constitute a review if you're approaching Social Security age. So what are the different choices you have as far as why would I take it early, why would I defer it out? So let's kind of go through a couple of them. We've kind of gone through them before, but one of the biggest one obviously is if you don't have much money and you need that Social Security to survive, obviously you want to take that early at 62. Maybe you want to invest those monthly benefits. You don't need them, but you understand the power of investing. You want to take those and reinvest them somewhere else to grow. Still case you may have some issues with longevity. Where you may want to take it earlier. Maybe you want to take it early, like the example I gave before, and let your spouse defer longer, or maybe that or maybe that your spouse wants to delay claiming, so you want to take it earlier, like I mentioned before. And again, there could be longevity issues where you have concerns of as well. The other reason to take it later is again you want a higher monthly retirement income. We talked about that. After full retirement age, that 8% deferral rate, that guaranteed bump in income. You want to avoid the taxes. Maybe you're still working. Again, you want to defer longer so you have a larger amount for your spouse to step into. There's a lot of different reasons, but again, give us a call and we'll walk you through a one-on-one projection to show you all the different options and claiming strategies you have, especially as a couple. It gets a little bit more complicated with those as well. So once you decided to get to that point where you're looking to collect Social Security, you can call as early as 4 months ahead of time. Usually about 3 months is what you want to do to go ahead and start that process. You can give them a call. You can go online. You can check on your Social Security statement to run the reviews we've talked about before. If you don't have that, you can create an account online to get it. But at the end of the day, the Social Security Administration will help answer your questions, but they won't give you any advice as far as claiming strategies or things like that. So if you have questions on it, give us a call to review that. And that really kind of ties hand in hand with that cash flow analysis I talked about before. It's not just Social Security. You also have to look at the big picture. Do you have other assets, whether it be a 401k or an IRA, a pension? Do you have other income, rental property, things like that, to figure out what your overall long-term financial plan is going to be, and how does this Social Security tie into that for you? So just give us a call and we can go through that. Right now, about 3/4 of Americans over 50 don't even have a written plan. If you can spend about 10 minutes with us gathering some data or updating data, if it's been a little while since we've run one, we can run this for you, get it back to you in about a week, spend some time going over it, and really help you determine the best day to retire, and also in turn help you determine the best claiming strategy in your Social Security as to when to actually elect Social Security, whether you need to take it early, whether before retirement age, or deferring all the way out to age 70, as we talked about before as well. So with that, I want to wrap this up. I'll get over to some questions we have here. But any questions you have that we didn't cover, just give us a call at 1-800-900-5867. We'll be happy to answer those for you. You can also reach us at info@theretirementgroup.com. We've got a couple QR codes up here on the screen, so if you're tech savvy, have your cell phone out, go ahead and hold that up. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with myself or one of the other advisors in the offices, you can do that. Those schedules are probably about a week out, so if you need something more urgent, just give us a call. And if you'd like to follow along with us on our LinkedIn page, or get to our your company specific LinkedIn page that we've created to give you more updates on your pension updates, 401k updates, things of that nature, we can do that for you as well. Let me go ahead and take a look at some of these questions we may have had come in here, and then we'll kind of cover those and then wrap this up for you. Okay, so first one, I have a Social Security offset on my pension. How does Social Security affect my pension, or does my pension affect Social Security? Okay, so I mentioned before, we do a lot of work with companies that have pension plans. So the classic defined benefit plan calculation usually is going to be something in the nature of looking at your final average pay times your years of service times a multiplier minus the Social Security offset. So what that means is Social Security, if you're an employee, you're only paying half of your Social Security taxes. The company's paying the other half. So what they're doing is they're essentially kind of clawing back those taxes they put in there. So what they'll do is they'll look at those numbers and say, okay, they're also going to claw back a percentage of that Social Security we put in there. Now, this is really important to understand for a lot of you that maybe that didn't work at the company your entire career. Maybe you worked in the public sector, maybe you're a teacher or something like that. Because what they're going to do is, I'll give you an example. Let's run the numbers and assume that everything comes through and your pension calculation comes out to, let's say, $2,500 a month for the rest of your life, but that Social Security offset's going to be $500 a month. So you're only going to get you only get $2,000 a month. Now that's based upon them calculating out your Social Security with an estimate based upon your current income. Now, if half your career you were a teacher or something like that, you wouldn't have been putting into Social Security. So your Social Security offset may actually be smaller. And we can run through that with you, and we would submit that to the company, and it may be, instead of a $500 reduction, it might only be $200 or $300 reduction. So you can save yourself a couple hundred bucks and a potential annuity income from your company, or it could also translate into tens of thousands of dollars in a lump sum conversion factor as well. So it's really important to kind of understand that. So that, yeah, the Social Security does affect the pension. The pension doesn't affect the Social Security. There's a couple of companies that do like a uniform income code, and what that means is, let's say that $2,500 a month is what the overall income payment was they were going to give you, but you're getting, let's say, $1,000 a month Social Security. So they'll give you that $2,500 a month until Social Security kicks in, then they'll drop it to $1,500. So that $1,500 plus the $1,000 equals the $2,500. Not many companies do that, and that gives you a choice, and I don't think many people choose that, but that's one way. But the pension does not affect the Social Security. Another thing, before we get to the next question, I'll add in there, because I had a question about this from a client just last week. I just mentioned, the Social Security offset, if you weren't working for the same company the entire time, and maybe you were a teacher, that gets into the WEP, the windfall election provision, where you need to look at that if you are in the public sector and you weren't contributing to Social Security, or you did for part of your career. There is a calculation that takes a look at how much you're getting as far as a pension from that public sector that may eliminate or reduce your Social Security. So if you have a question on that, let us know. We can run through that with you, because that does affect the benefits you can get on Social Security. Again, that's the WEP, the windfall election provision. So another question, will my Social Security benefits change with inflation being so high right now? Okay, I showed that chart before where we looked at that cost of living adjustment. So again, the Social Security Administration does bump up each year based on cost of living adjustments. We obviously haven't seen that much in the last decade or so, but We saw that at around 6% in 2022, and in 2023 it's going to be 8.7%. So again, it's not necessarily keeping up 100% with inflation, but it is going hand in hand. So it's a pretty big raise for a lot of people. And like I mentioned before, that cost of living adjustment gets calculated out in the future projections as well. So when we talk about, again, like I said, that example of, let's say somebody having $1,500 a month at age 62 versus $2,500 a month at age 70, an 8% jump on 2,500 is going to correlate to a higher increase than 8% jump on 1,500. So again, it goes into that as well when you look at that long-term picture. When's the latest I can claim Social Security? Is there a cutoff? So the latest you can claim, again, we talked about was age 70. And I guess you would call that the cutoff. There's really no cutoff. The Social Security Administration is not going to knock on your door and say, hey, guess what? You're 70 years old. We want to start giving you money. So you got to be very careful about that. You do need to claim your benefits. It's not automatic. And again, you can claim that as early as 4 months out. So you want to, within that 4 to 3 months prior to age 70, get on the phone or go online and start that process to collect those benefits at age 70. Again, it's not automatic. The only way it would have been automatic is if you, for some reason, had started your benefits and then suspended them. Then it will start back up at age 70. But generally speaking, you do need to start your benefits at age 70. If you forget, you make it to age 72, they're not going to go back and give it to you. They do look back, and you are able to retroactively get up to 6 months. So if you forgot and didn't do it till 70 and change, you could probably still get your benefits, but there's no continued deferral. If you forgot and wait till 74, then you're missing out on 3.5 years of payments. So again, you need to turn that on by 70. If you're at full retirement age still working, can you claim Social Security and put it into a Roth or other 401k and not get hit with taxes? So yes and no. So it's kind of 6 and 1, half dozen the other. You're essentially, what's going to happen is you can still get that Social Security. You're not going to be able to make a contribution into any type of Social Security 401k or Roth IRA from Social Security income. You have to have earned income in order to make a 401k contribution or an IRA contribution or a Roth contribution. So effectively, let's say you make $50,000 and you get $20,000 of Social Security, then you're getting $70,000 total. It's just a matter of saying, okay, I can take $20,000 from my pay and put that into my 401k, for instance, or I can take $6,000 and put it into a Roth IRA, whatever it may be. So yes, you can do it. It's not going to change your taxes on your Social Security or anything, unless again you're putting more into your 401k. It's going to reduce your overall taxable income. So yes and no. The question is, you can do that. But if you just have Social Security, you can't do it. You still need to have earned income in order to contribute to a 401k, an IRA, or a Roth IRA. But again, this gets into that tax planning strategy we talk about with our clients all the time. So just give us a call. We can run through those numbers with you. Let me kind of wrap this up here. We got one more. Can I claim only part of my Social Security benefits, or do I need to take all of it? No, the good news is what you're entitled to, you're going to get. You're not going to be able to take part of it. At least I've never seen that. You can go back to that same question we just answered. You can take it and invest the rest, so you can consider that being taking part of it to yourself. But once you elect those benefits, you're going to have to keep getting those, and there's not a partial benefit. The closest you could say is, again, going back to that spousal situation where you might have one spouse defer and one spouse collect early. There are options where if you were to start collecting Social Security, and let's say you went out and got a job, you could say, I want to stop that, and you can repay it up to a year, I think that is. You can repay that back and put that back in there. But again, it's not a partial. But if you're entitled to $1,500 a month, they're going to send you $1,500. You can't say, I want to take $1,000 and defer out the extra $500. You take that $1,500 and invest the $500. If you wouldn't spend the $1,000, that's all you need. So the answer to that question is no, there is no partial. Once you start the Social Security, that is what you're going to be getting. And again, it will be inflated with the cost of adjustment there. So some good questions there. If anybody else has some questions we didn't get to, we'll try and get to those. But feel free to give us a call again at 1-800-900-5867 for any additional questions you have, and obviously some company-specific questions. We didn't get into that today, but if you have questions on your company plans or your pension, we can go through that with you as well. Again, a quick reminder, even though we've worked with a lot of companies for close to 30 years now, that does not mean we're endorsed by them nor employed by them. But again, having extensive knowledge of your company plans gives us the ability to really hold your hand through that transition process, answer any questions you have, and obviously tie Social Security into the mix as well in that cash flow analysis. So I want to thank everybody for taking a little bit of time out of their day and spending it with us, and we hope you have a great day. We look forward to talking to you soon.